Hey friends, so we all know the dividend snowball effect. It has three main levers, three main components that cause the snowball to get out of control in terms of passive income from dividends. The first lever is net new capital deployed. This is the lever that most investors are very familiar with, especially when they're starting out in the dividend game. The second lever is dividend increases. This is when a company goes ahead and increases their dividend payout, just like Raytheon Technologies just did in this past week. They increased the dividend by a whopping 7.3%. The last lever, the third lever, it's dividend reinvestment. It's taking dividends that are paid out by the companies that I own and putting that money back to use in the portfolio to incrementally create more dividends. I guess the fourth lever is just time. It's time in the game. It's letting the system do its thing, do its magic before I take out passive income for living expenses. I want to talk about this process today because I had an epiphany in terms of my own dividend stock investing journey about how this process is unfolding, what I'm going through, how my portfolio is evolving, and actually why the second lever, the dividend increases, it's more meaningful than ever for me. And it's important to highlight this because as you can see on the screen right now, I want to share an example through the lens of Raytheon Technologies. For a newer investor, sometimes these dividend increases, they almost seem like, hey, why are you guys out there on Twitter celebrating this so much? What's so exciting? It's not that great. And I'll give you a great example here. With $1,000 invested in Raytheon Technologies, that buys about 10 shares because the shares right now are trading about $100.95 each. And so the old dividends per year annualized were $220, and the new dividends per year after the 7.3% dividend increase are $236 a year, annualizing the quarterly dividend. And basically, you can see here for someone who hypothetically had $1,000 invested in Raytheon Technologies, that investor before the recent dividend increase would have received $22 in annual dividend income. After the increase, $23.60. And so there is a whopping $1.60 more in dividend income. Just $1.60 because of a 7.3% dividend increase, but that's because of the scale of the portfolio. An investor at this stage with a hypothetical 10 shares in Raytheon Technologies, that investor is going to see a lot more benefit just deploying new capital into Raytheon Technologies versus celebrating and getting super excited about dividend increases, because we just saw a 7.3% dividend increase. It doesn't do that much on a smaller, newer portfolio. But I want to share another example right now. As you can see on the screen in front of you, this is a different investor. This is a hypothetical investor who's been in the game a lot longer than the first one. And this investor has managed to grow his portfolio to $100,000 in Raytheon Technologies alone, $100,000 in this single stock. Now, again, the price per share is the same, but because this investor has more money, this investor has 1,000 shares, and 1,000 shares at $100 gets us to just over $100,000 value. Now, the dividend, it increased the same. It went from $220 a year to $236 a year. That's at 7.3% dividend increase. But you can see the old income is $2,200 a year in cash flow that can be used to pay the bills or can be reinvested. The new dividend per year, dividend income, passive income from the dividend after the increase is $23.60. So it's $160 more. The investor in scenario 2, just because of the sheer scale of the portfolio, these dividend increases, lever 2 of the snowball, it's a lot more meaningful because of the scale. It's $160. And here's where it gets really interesting. For this investor, as you can see on the screen right now, I'm actually going to show both of these side by side. You can see the investor in the second scenario. How much would this investor need to invest to generate that same incremental cash flow of $160? How much money would that investor have to put into Raytheon Technologies to get that same effect? For example, let's say this investor, hypothetically speaking, there was no dividend increase. Raytheon wasn't doing as well as it is right now, and the investor needed another $160 a year and didn't get it through lever 2, didn't get it through the dividend increase. This investor would actually have to place $7,341.82 to get the same effect as the dividend increase. Whereas in scenario 1, the $1,000 portfolio for Raytheon Technologies in that single stock that investor would have only had to place $73.42 to get that same effect of an incremental $1.60. You can start seeing when portfolios get a lot more scale, these dividend increases, that second lever in the snowball effect, it has so much more meaning. But I want to keep going. I have a chart. I have a fun chart I put together. I didn't even do this on my whiteboard. I did this in Excel because I'm going to save that one sheet of paper today, being super frugal, but I wanted to illustrate it this way. So as you can see on the screen in front of you, this is a bit inspired, or quite inspired, I would say, by my own journey. And I think this is a journey that a lot of dividend investors go through. And this is going to help illustrate the point that I'm trying to make today as well. I'm telling a story today. I'm trying to unfold how dividend stock investing works and how it works through the snowball, and how that snowball is always working. The net new capital, the dividend increases, the reinvestments, the time in the game, all of the levers are always working, but they're really working more effectively at different paces, different phases in the game. And so here's what I want to show. The first thing you can see at the top here is I basically bucket this journey, this dividend stock investor's journey, into 30 years. Now, this 30 years could be fewer years for someone going quicker. It could be more years for someone who's going really slow. I thought, though, this kind of 30-year time horizon would resonate with a lot of folks tuning in today. I would say the first 10 years, the investor is just grinding it out, working hard, deploying a lot of capital, staying pretty motivated. That's why I use the color green. That's kind of that first era. The second era in orange is, hey, I'm still grinding it out. I'm going to grind it out for another 5 years, but boy, is this grind getting old. This is painful. My body is getting tired. My responsibility in life are getting more. I have more responsibilities. I'm slowing down, but I have to keep grinding to build that portfolio. The third phase in red, kind of for those next 5 years up to year 20, is like, hey, I'm kind of grinding it out a little bit, but I'm barely holding on. I can't really keep up with this anymore. It's really hard. Life is getting tough. It's a struggle. And then all of a sudden it flips in year 21 to living the dream. The point of this illustration today, I'm going to get into in a lot of detail, is it shows, honestly, in my opinion, the hardest part of dividend stock investing is living through it. It is hard. It's get rich slowly. It takes time. But when the snowball builds and all of these levers work together, the result is miraculous because it allows the everyday person to live the dream, live off of dividends. But as you can see on the screen right now in front of you, I want to show just those first 10 years. It's in green. It's when the investor gets started. It's really easy because, hey, the investor is young, has a lot of energy, not a lot of family responsibilities. And you can see there the dividend income, just the raw dollar dividend income. I just use the X's there to illustrate how it's growing over time, but it's growing pretty steady. And most of that growth in those early years, in terms of the snowball, it's actually coming from net new capital deployed. And you can see there the monthly contribution is 100%, 100%, 100%. That investor is steadily investing as much as possible during those first 10 years. And you can see the utilization of the dividends for those first 10 years. That investor is not pulling any money out. That investor is reinvesting like crazy, not using the dividends. But something really changes in year 11. There's a yellow bar. Some of you have probably seen this era of kind of the grind is getting old. You probably saw it in my YouTube channel a few years ago when I said, hey, everyone, I'm starting to use dividends a little bit. I'm not using them a lot, but I'm using them a little bit. I'm getting my feet wet. I'm starting to enjoy some of the cash flow. I'm starting to enjoy the fruits of my labor, if you will. As you can see on the screen in front of you, the grind in this phase for the next kind of 5 years, again, the time line here can be different for different people, but the grind gets old. The body starts getting older. This person may or may not want to work as much anymore. There's this other stuff in life, like having a family, having kids. Maybe the investor at this point also wants to start enjoying some of the finer things in life. It's a little more difficult to just be ultra frugal, but the grind is getting old. And that's why you can see the monthly contribution, it's going down. First, it goes down 90%, then 80%. In year 15, down to like 70%. It's starting to go down. That investor isn't contributing as much as that investor once was. But what is miraculous here, and I'm going to show you a bit more about this in text format as well in a few slides in a minute, the dividend income, you can actually see the slope of the line, the dividend income, the raw dollars, the slope of that line has increased in pace. It's growing quicker. It's going better. And you can see that that's happening even though this investor now is utilizing some of the dividends. This, you can see all the way at the bottom, instead of utilizing zero dividends, there's about 10% of the dividends are being utilized. The monthly contributions are actually dipping a little quicker than the utilization of the dividends because maybe this investor also is just saying, hey, I can't work this hard. I'm not making as much money, or the money I am making, I'm using some of it for other things. But the dividend income, it's growing even quicker than before. Why is it? It goes back to the beginning of this video when I showed what happens with Raytheon Technologies. At a certain point, lever 2 in the dividend stock portfolio, it outweighs lever number 1 in terms of the snowball. At a certain point, the portfolio reaches a critical scale. At a certain point, the portfolio is big enough where the dividend increases from the companies outweigh net new capital infused. And so even though this investor, when the grind is starting to get old, is not investing quite as much money, even though this investor is starting to utilize some of the dividends just for fun things in life, to take it easier maybe, the portfolio is still growing really fast, even faster than before, because the baton has been passed somewhat. In the early days, it's like running a race. In the early days of it all, let's say this is a relay race with a bunch of runners. The first runner that has the baton is the one that's just plowing capital into the portfolio. But in phase 2, the baton is passed a little bit, and it's now going over to the companies themselves and how quickly they can increase the dividends, because the quicker they are increased, that is actually impacting the portfolio at a greater clip than adding new capital was in those early days, because the portfolio has gotten bigger. That's the difference between those two scenarios, the 100,000 in Raytheon versus the 1,000 in Raytheon. Again, those numbers are just hypothetical. They could be anything, but you see the picture. But I want to keep going. As you can see on the screen in front of you next, what I want to share now is the red zone. This is where it gets hard. I have lived this personally, and I think all of us who have been in the game long enough have. Dividend investing takes a lot of time to do it right, especially those of us going for fat fire, and especially those of us going for fat fire on a high quality portfolio with stocks that yield in that 2% range, 3% range, 2.3% like Raytheon Technologies. Those types of investors who want fat fire on those core quality stocks, it can take a lot of hustle, a lot of grind, a lot of time. And so you start getting past year 15 of grinding it out. And sometimes it feels, not every day, but hey, you're barely holding on. This grind is getting old. I'm getting old. I can only work so many hours in the day. There's other things in life that have captured my attention. I can't stay up till 3 a.m. working every night. I have to go to bed now at 10:30, 11, 12. The body just can't handle it anymore. And you start feeling like, boy, life is getting more expensive. Inflation has kicked in, or family responsibilities have kicked in, and you can start seeing my monthly contributions, they're not what they once were, they're going down. And quite frankly, because I'm barely holding on, because things are getting old, the grind is getting old, maybe this investor starts utilizing dividends a little more, utilizing more to counteract the challenges of everyday life, the everyday life stresses of working, of grinding it out for so many years, so many decades. At a certain point, that investor wants to tap into the dividends just a little more, maybe to go on some luxury travel, maybe to make some luxury purchases, to help counterbalance the grind, to make it sustainable, to get to that finish line, if you will. But as you can see on the screen right now, in that third phase where the investor is basically kind of barely holding on, and not every day has to be like that, but there's certainly going to be certain days where the investor is like, hey, do I still have faith in this strategy? Do I still have faith in this fat fire, this dividend stock investing? Certainly the investor questions himself or herself at certain times. You can see the slope there of the growth of the dividend income. It's still there, but it's kind of slowed down again. And the reason it's slowed down honestly, at this point is because those monthly contributions are going down. So lever 1 of the snowball is going way down. Lever 2, thankfully, is picking up a lot of the slack. Also, the lever 3, the dividend reinvestment, it's slowing down a little bit as well because those dividends, some of them are being utilized. So not only is the investor investing less net new cash, but that investor is actually reinvesting fewer of the dividends. But thankfully, because the dividend snowball is so powerful, that dividend income, the raw dollar income, it is still growing. It's just at a slower slope. It's more like in the first phase versus the second phase. And just when this investor thought that the investor could not hold on any longer, the dream is realized. And so this is where it gets really fun. The investor gets into that dividend dream state. And I want to illustrate, I put this all in blue actually at the top of the screen. And the reason I did that because this investor is now living in Hawaii or on a tropical beach somewhere, maybe in Florida, somewhere really, really nice. And as you can see on the screen in front of you right now, what happens in this fourth phase, if you will, it's actually really wonderful. The dividend income, it keeps growing because this investor, whereas this investor is not investing any more net new capital, that's down to zero. You can see the monthly contribution, it's now at zero, but you can see utilization of dividends is only 75%. And so this investor was smart enough to build a portfolio even bigger than he or she needed. And so certainly some of those dividends are still being reinvested, but also there's that second lever, which is ever so important, that the dividends are still being increased by the companies that pay them, just as Raytheon Technologies had just done. And so the dividend income, it is still growing. It's just growing slower over time. And this is why I love dividend stock investing so much. It is passive income that can keep growing over time. Even once the investor is in FIRE, financial independence, retire early, even when the investor is living the dividend dream, that passive income, it can keep growing because the companies themselves, lever number 2, are increasing the dividend over time. And the snowball, lever number 3, if the investor is still reinvesting a portion of those dividends, that can help out as well. And so I hope you enjoyed my chart today. I have a few more things I want to go through in the video today, but before I go on to that, if you don't mind, please go ahead and smash that like button. It means the world to me. It really helps these videos reach more people. I want anyone and everyone out there to see these videos about dividend stock investing. And so what I want to do next is just give a quick screenshot of Raytheon Technologies because I've been talking about it so much, but as you can see on the screen right now, just as a level set, just to go back in time, I guess I probably should have done this at the beginning of the video, but you can see on the screen in front of you right now, just the statistics of Raytheon Technologies. I don't need to go through too much of this. What amazes me at this is even during a turbulent stock market, this thing is only 4.6% off its 52-week high. That just goes to show how good of a core quality blue chip name this has been during turbulent market times. Some fun facts, I actually started buying this thing in 2013, so it's been 10 years. And so I started buying this when it was UTX, United Technologies. Now it's RTX because they spun off Carrier and Otis, which I also own both of those, and they merged with Raytheon. It became Raytheon Technologies. And this is my number 6 largest dividend stock position. It represents 3.9% of my portfolio, 2.8% of my dividend income. Now, my patrons, by the way, already know that. I will link to that in the pinned comment below. I publish my portfolio, the percentage allocation to each position over on Corner Patreon. So my Corner patrons, they already know this fun fact. But I want to keep going. As you can see on the screen in front of you right now, the next thing that I want to share is just the dividends. So you can see they just did the 7.3% dividend increase from 55 cents to 59 cents. But here's where it gets more interesting. I'm actually looking at the last 3 years since Raytheon Technologies has been a standalone company. It was spun out of United Technologies, merged with Raytheon. They've actually been increasing the dividend per year for each of the last 3 years on average by 7.49%. So it's really fabulous to see that this is a dividend grower. This is a dividend growth stock. And now it really does do a great job for my portfolio in terms of lever 2 of the snowball, the dividend increases. Now, certainly over long periods of time, maybe the dividend increases will slow a bit, but that's when the baton gets passed a little bit more, and I lean a little bit heavier on reinvestment to continue to grow the snowball. Now, with all of that said, I want to go on to just a text format of what I said today because everyone learns in different ways. I want to make sure I don't miss any of the insights in the video today. And if you are enjoying the videos so far, please also remember to subscribe because I have new videos here on the way all the time. And my life is busy. I work so hard to get these videos out here on YouTube, and I appreciate all of you. And I always try in the comments below to look at all of your comments and to answer most, if not all of them. And so thank you for all of your support. As you can see on the screen in front of you right now, I want to share a few more things in the video. And the first one is just my personal portfolio. And so for the newer portfolio, the first 10 or 15 years, lever one, a net new cash infused, is really the largest driver of incremental cash flow. But I was looking at my own portfolio, and these days I put that in quotes, but in dollar terms, it's a good amount. I would say net new cash infused is only increasing my portfolio value on average, I would say by about 4.3% per year, estimated on a go-forward basis. And it will probably be at this or lower as the portfolio continues to grow. And so when I get something like a 7.3% dividend increase for me, actually, because I'm more in those middle phases, later phases of the journey that I just shared, a 7.3% dividend increase, lever two of the snowball, it's actually more meaningful for me these days than a 4.3% cash that I'm just infusing into the portfolio. And eventually, dividend growth, I do estimate it to slow down, even for companies like Raytheon Technologies. At a certain point, it might be 10 years, it might be 20, who knows when, but it will slow down. At a certain point, it's really that third lever that will pick up the slack. And so it's right now on a portfolio-wide basis, my current yield is 3.17%, and certainly the cash that I'm infusing into the portfolio is higher than that, and the increases, especially on stocks like Raytheon, are really higher than that at 7.3%. And so the dividend reinvestment, it still helps, it's meaningful, but for my personal portfolio, because I skew towards those higher quality, lower yielding names, that third lever, it's part of the snowball, it helps, and it certainly is meaningful, but I expect that portion of the snowball to do the most meaningful work in some of the more final stages of the journey of my portfolio. And so with all of that, I have a few more things I want to share. As you can see on the screen in front of you right now, I just want to share this analogy. I spoke to it in the video today. I want to share it in text as well. I like to think of the snowball as a relay race. All three of the team members are always cheering. All three of the team members are always working together. They all play a role, but in the early stages, the baton is with the net new capital. In the middle stages of the portfolio, I would say the baton is with the dividend increases. In the latter stages of the portfolio, the reinvestment really gets the portfolio to the finish line, but all three work in parallel. And I'm speaking to a portfolio structured like my own. Now, there are portfolios out there, like higher yield portfolios, where really the reinvestment has the baton from the get-go, if you will. It would be the new capital infused and the reinvestment, and the dividend increases in a high yielder portfolio probably wouldn't be meaningful. They wouldn't really have the baton in that relay race at all. And so it really is portfolio specific. Now, the last thing I want to share, as you can see on the screen in front of you right now, is a fun tidbit, just the crazy life of the dividend investor. We all know that life is complex and stressful, and at a certain point in time, one's age and one's plate becoming full, there's going to be a realization that this is not sustainable. And I would say the hardest part of dividend investing is trying to grind it out to sustain everything, putting a ton of cash in the portfolio to kickstart it, but continuing the grind as long as possible, especially for those of us going for fat fire. But eventually the grind, it's not going to be able to continue. It's not going to be sustainable. And thankfully, what I want to say is even when the investor can't plow much more net new cash into the portfolio, there are other levers in the snowball, the reinvestment and the dividend increases that can carry the weight. It's a team. The snowball itself is a team of levers that grows this thing into a monster avalanche of passive dividend income. All right, everyone, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to smash the like button. I love you all. I appreciate all of your support. Before I go today, In terms of a full disclosure, I am long Raytheon Technologies, ticker RTX, Carrier, ticker CARR, and Otis, ticker OTIS. I own those in my personal dividend stock portfolio. I'm also long 3M, ticker MMM. I'm not using that whiteboard today, though. In terms of a friendly disclaimer, today's video, it's not investment advice. I'm not a licensed investment advisor. Today's video, it's just for your fun and entertainment. If you're going to go out and invest in the stock market or anywhere else, please consult your licensed financial advisor first. It's possible to lose money in the stock market. I'm just sharing my own journey. It's possible to lose money in the stock market. I love you all. Thank you for tuning in today. I will see you in the next video. I'll see you in the comments below, and I wish you all an amazing day.